Hey, what's up, guys? All right, a little bit of Sunday prep here, and the big three score. So the watch list columns and the labels, they are going to be a part of an update that we're going to push here in a few weeks with the big three squeeze. What I'm trying to figure out on a Sunday is what kind of market am I in? Bullish market, bearish market? Am I in buy the dip mode, short the rally mode, or are things just a bit more choppy? And we're kind of looking for weekly income trades. So with the big three score, it kind of takes out a lot of the guesswork. Best possible score for the Bulls is 10. Best possible score for the Bears is -10. So who's looking good? Google's a +7. Meta's a +7. Microsoft's a +6. From there, there's not too much to write home about. Nvidia's a 5. The big boy Apple's a 4. QQQ is 0. It's not bullish, not bearish. It's just it's kind of nothing. AMD is 0. The semis are 0, and then things get a little bit fugly. IWM -9. Netflix ahead of earnings is -9. The equal weighted index, RSP's -9. And then Big Mama herself, S&P's -6. So S&P's here with a -6 tells me, very clearly we're not in a bullish market. If anything, we're in a bit more chop. That does lean a bit more bearish. So choppy with the potential for now to go a lot lower. That's gonna play a role as far as what am I looking for this week. If we're back in, we're back here in April, May. The S&Ps, the QQQ, pretty much everything out there is going to be cranking out a +7, 8, 9, 10. At that point, we're in, buy the dip mode. We're in look for a squeeze and get long mode. And as long as we have that wind at our back, we're doing that with good size. -6, if you like your cash, you want to be a little careful being swing long here. Now, I think a few things you want to pay attention to this week. This might kind of give us a bit more clarity as far as what's the next good swing trade. With everything approaching earnings, so this week you got Tesla, the Nvidias, the Googles, Microsofts of the world. They all got earnings coming up, and ahead of earnings we have a lot of big weekly squeezes. So the one thing that we know about a weekly squeeze is, eventually that's going to lead to what should be a pretty big move. Whether that be to the upside, whether that be to the downside, that's still to be determined. And what I think could play a pretty big role here is earnings. If the Teslas, the Metas, Nvidias, Googles of the world, if they bomb, it's going to have a bit of an influence here on the SPX to probably want to fire that squeeze short. If earnings is just miraculous, Amazon gaps up, Apple gaps up, it's going to have a bit more of a positive influence on that weekly squeeze. So I want to show you a few here, and if we check out the scores, the weekly squeeze here for the S&Ps gets a -1, which just means it's a bit more chop. So it's not a perfect short, it's not a perfect long. What we want to do from here is just watch that develop week by week. Remember last time you had a weekly squeeze, we eventually got the buy signal, and that bad boy goes from 4,100 to 4,600. So not to say this squeeze will fire long, but if they can pack a punch, and then the Qs here, the QQQ weekly squeeze grades out a lot better than the S&Ps. S&Ps are a -1, the QQQ is a +7. Meaning structure is much better, momentum is much better. Until that changes, you're kind of looking for that to fire to the upside. And again, I think earnings here is going to have a pretty big role. So for the big boys, Meta has earnings on the 25th, so a couple of weeks here. And right now, Meta's weekly squeeze gets a 10 out of 10. This is where earnings can get really tricky. Structure, momentum, all the pretty colors here suggest that squeeze should fire to the upside. As we know, earnings can really rain on that parade. We have Microsoft. And Microsoft also gets a +7. If we go check Google, Google gets a +9. Let's see, Tesla gets a positive 8. And a lot of these also have nested squeezes, meaning it's not just the weekly chart in a squeeze. Take Tesla, for example. Tesla has a weekly squeeze, a 3-day squeeze. There goes my Mario figurine. But Tesla's got a weekly, a 3-day, a 2-day, a daily, and a 4-hour. Now, whether earnings is positive or negative, whatever the reaction might be, could trigger the 4-hour squeeze to fire. The 4-hour could trigger the daily triggers the 2-day, the 3-day, the weekly. A lot of squeeze on, squeeze action. So it's an interesting time, guys. We're not in a great market. I think anytime the RSP, like everything in the S&P is just being equal, anytime the RSP is a -9, you know, we're in the furthest thing from a wake up and get long kind of market. Wake up, buy calls, and hit the beach. You had that back in May, June, a little bit of July. Right now, we got the furthest thing from it. Now, if anything can save the market, I would think it's your big boys heading into earnings. You get the Apples, the Googles, the Microsofts. If they can knock earnings out of the park, they begin to move higher just based on their weighting. That could help the RSP and it could help the S&Ps. So my thinking this week, guys, is take things day by day. And I think one thing we're doing a really good job of in the mastery as of late is knowing when to pounce on the directional trades. So last week we traded Meta. Beautiful daily squeeze, A+ setup, 10 out of 10. We bought a call debit spread on Monday, and we flipped it out on Tuesday for a nice 80%. Now, that's my favorite trade in the world. We only risked 1% of our account. That's not a reflection of the Meta setup, it's a reflection of the market. If we're in a better market, if the S&Ps look like Meta, that's a 10, 12, maybe 15% position. So it's a market where you got to have a mix of, find those good setups, knowing when to pounce. And then in the meantime, for the last 4 weeks here, we're throwing on Friday expiration iron condors. And for 3 weeks in a row, we're taking home about 50% of the max profit. That alone is good for a nice little 1% bump in the account. So this week we're short the 42.20 puts, and we're short the 44.50 calls in a condor. It's not exciting, it's not a home run, but the baseline goal for us here in the Mastery is about 2% per week. Between the condor and between the meta trade last week, I think we came in at about 1.7. But there you have it, folks. Not so much a trade suggestion for this week, but a bit more so something to throw on your watch list and definitely keep an eye on. SPX, QQQ, Meta, Nvidia, Google, Microsoft weekly squeezes. In a market where most things look pretty bearish, if anything can save it, it'd be the big fellas trying to get something going higher out of those squeezes. Now on the flip side, if the big boys go taking a tumble after earnings, and we actually see those squeezes fire short, at that point I'd imagine the S&Ps and pretty much everything else out there gets pummeled. So, shall not be dull. But alright guys, as always, thank you for watching. For those of you in the Mastery, I will see you tomorrow. And as mentioned, for those of you with the Big 3 squeeze, which you can check out with the link in the description, we'll have an update coming in a few weeks here with the updated labels, the Big 3 score, the tweaked bull score, the tweaked bear score, the tweaked targets, all the fixins. But alright y'all, happy Sunday. Talk to you soon.